Alright, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. And regardless, whether you're new here or you've been with me for a while but haven't yet subscribed, either way, if you like today's video and you like what I'm doing here on this channel, please take the time to like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will be notified when I have new videos go up. So today, I thought I would finally review Lee Cronin's The Mummy. And yeah, so this movie, now originally I was very, very excited for this movie, originally, because I loved, Evil Dead Rise. I thought that movie, in fact that and, Evil Dead 2 are probably my favorite, Evil Dead movies in the series. But, and this movie kind of has similar vibes to it. Kind of has those, those Evil Dead vibes to it. But more than anything, this is really The Exorcist meets The Conjuring, really, more than anything. Which might, sound like an interesting idea on paper, but unfortunately, it doesn't do the movie really any favors. And this movie, this movie was actually really gross, to be honest. This movie was a lot. Alright, so let me get into the story. So we are, at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a family. And the daughter, we are introduced to a family, and the daughter, Katie, is outside playing, and she is interacting with someone. She's interacting with someone who introduces herself as a magician, but also, apparently, the mother. She introduces herself as the mother of a friend of Katie's. And she gets, quote-unquote, kidnapped. And they report it, and then they report it to the police. They report it to the police, and then we flash forward, about like 8 years later in, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they get a phone call from, from the police department saying, hey, your daughter's been found, she's alive. And this is where the movie kind of took a huge nosedive, because it's like, you're getting, you're getting a call, 8 years later, and it's like, really? It's like, oh yeah, your daughter's been found, she's alive and well, just, feel free to come pick her up. And and when we are, reintroduced to Katie, she looks a lot like how Linda Blair did in The Exorcist. And that's basically what this movie is. It's basically an Exorcist ripoff, because, they take her home, and obviously what should have been a very warm, family reunion obviously turns into a hellish nightmare. And, a lot of the things, again, I don't want to dive too much into spoilers, but it just, a lot of the movie, focuses on the father, trying to figure out, because the mother is kind of, like in her own, like little world, so to speak. She's, she's like, oh, I can take care of her. I can, I can this, I can that. But the father is the only one that's really willing to go, out of his way, probably because he's a TV reporter. But he's really the only, he's the one that's doing, like, the actual research, trying to figure out, like, what happened to his daughter, like, where she's been, for the past 8 years, and specifically, like, what happened to her. And it turns out that she came back to them by she like cross lands out of the sky in a sarcophagus. Yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense. Just just go with it. Uh, a lot of the things in this movie left me scratching my head and just going, like why? I mean, I don't know if it was studio interference or just Lee Cronin's bad choice in writing decisions, but I did not. It's the kind of movie that you come to expect with Blumhouse. Yeah, yes, I forgot to mention this is a Blumhouse movie. But to give credit where credit is due, this isn't a bad movie by any means. I wouldn't even put this movie like in the top 10, worst movies that Blumhouse has ever done. I would not put that, I would not put this as one of them. But the problem is that it's boring. And by the third act, when the movie, really, really starts to drag, by that third act, it's like, get to the point already, and like I said before, and this movie is really, really gross. Like, this movie is, I mean, it's a good-looking movie, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a really, the special effects were really, really good. And that's one of the things that I will give, Lee Cronin, credit on, is both, both this movie and Evil Dead Rise were both very, very good-looking movies, visually, and special effects-wise. But the problem is that it doesn't really add anything to the story itself. You know what I mean? Like with The Exorcist, like when you're watching it, and you're watching all of, you're watching like all of these doctors trying to figure out, doing all these things and, trying to figure out, like what is wrong, with Linda Blair's character in that movie. Like, that's what made that movie, that's one of the things that made that movie so creepy. And in this movie, it didn't really, this movie just didn't do it for me. And again, I was originally very, very much looking forward to this movie, having loved Evil Dead Rise. Really, really, this is proof that Lee Cronin just should have done another Evil Dead movie. Which, from what I understand, he actually passed on because he wanted to do this. But, no, this didn't really feel like a mummy movie at all. It really, really didn't. And, while it's definitely not a bad movie by any means, I'm still gonna suggest skipping it. I'm still gonna, suggest skipping it just because, yes, while it was, a good-looking movie and the special effects were, and the special effects were very good, and the acting was solid enough, the chemistry of the family, was very, very believable, but it didn't really, it didn't really improve, the movie. So I'm going to give this, I know I don't usually give scores for the stuff that I review, but I'm going to make an exception, and I'm going to give this like a 6.5 out of 10, and just say, watch it if, watch it if you want to, but don't expect, anything amazing or spectacular by any means. Anyway, yeah, so let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.